Bill Hobby to be chair. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'd second that. And Phil, as long as Phil's okay with that, I think it's good that we have kind of experienced folks leading the group since there's so many new people at the table.
Thank you for asking, Jim. Yes, I do accept that nomination.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 So unanimous. Thank you. And then I'll turn it over.
And in turn, I would like to nominate Mary for the position of vice chair.
And I'd be happy to second that as well.
And yes, thanks for the nomination. I would be pleased to serve.
You should probably just call for just in between the nominations and the votes, if there's any discussion on it.
Like no discussion.
Bill, I think you can call for a vote.
Oh, have we transitioned?
Yes, we have.
Okay. Then all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any noes and no abstentions? Congratulations, Mary.
I think so.
There's one more position, and this is going to need a little discussion on our part. Mandy and Clyde, we put in to the town budget a small amount to hire a recorder for our select board meetings. And that was included in this year's budget, this coming year's budget. So that starts obviously in July. So in the meantime, I think we need to do two things. I think we do need a clerk regardless of what happens in July. And for now, Mary has volunteered to do the recording for tonight and maybe ongoing meetings till July. So we need nominations for the position of clerk on the select board.
Well, I have a question for you, Phil. I think the recorder is a different position than the clerk. I was clerk a number of years ago, and that was dealt with responding to correspondence. I don't think a recorder is an officer.
No, I agree. It would be a paid position and just would work for the board. But the three positions, as I understand it, are chair, vice chair, and clerk.
Okay, so you're saying the clerk is a different position than the recorder?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
And I don't know if, I didn't have time to research whether or not, if we have a recorder, do we still need the position of a clerk? I assume we do, but it's an assumption.
Yeah, I think we do.
Okay.
Well,
so,
I'll nominate Jim to be the clerk. I have no idea if he'd like to do that or not. You're on mute, Jim.
maybe that's on purpose.
I'm happy to do it unless somebody else is interested in the role. I do have a little bit of a challenge writing because I've got a hand issue.
Well, just speaking from experience, there was virtually never anything to do. So not to worry.
Well, any seconds for that?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Clyde. All in favor of Jim becoming clerk?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great. So I think we have our three officers. Our newspaper of record, I believe, is the Valley News. I'm not sure if there's another paper. Okay. So we'll continue with the Valley News. Meeting day and time. I don't want to mess with history here.
Phil,
Mondays.
can you make a motion on that newspaper of record?
I'll move that the Valley News be the paper of record.
I'll second it.
All in favor of the Valley News being the paper of record for Hartland?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, it's passed. Okay. Meeting day and time. We have the first and third Mondays of the month, which has been the tradition at 5:30. When that Monday is a national holiday, we meet on the following day. So I guess, Dave, do we need a motion for that, or can we just go forward with that?
Motion on all these would be best, if you could, please.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we continue to meet on the first and third Mondays of the month at 5:30 unless there's a holiday. We'll meet a day later.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mandy. All in favor of the meeting time and place, say aye.
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 And any abstentions?
I'll abstain.
Okay. Okay. Any nays? I don't think there's any nays. I think I saw the four. Okay. Meeting format. I was having some discussions on this because I really don't fully understand having a meeting and voting by a true consensus versus a majority. My interpretation of that is that we strive for consensus and we have a discussion either too much or
You're breaking up, Phil.
are there any other ideas?
Phil, you gotta rewind yourself. You must have that dial-up connection or something. You're freezing up on us.
Oh,
I don't know what's going on. If my internet connection or last came down. So we're talking. Oh, we just lost Jim.
Just for clarity, should I
A
have
discussion on a topic.
Yeah, Phil, you're still fading in and out.
Phil, you may want to do what you usually do. Do you need maybe to reboot?
Yeah, I'll be right back.
Okay.
And also what helps is if everybody mutes who's not speaking.
And Mary, am I supposed to be taking notes for this meeting or?
No. That was what we were talking about, the difference between a recorder and a clerk. So
Okay.
I'm taking the minutes.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Thank
you're
you.
off the hook, Jim.
You're the best.
Quinn, I can barely hear you. What was the question? So, yeah, it's a little confusing, but right above the word agenda is board organization, where it says elect officers, newspaper of record, meeting day and time. We're on the meeting format. Yes, since it's a new. So right above all of that. Yeah. Yeah, so as a new select board, they need to tackle these items before they can really kind of move into the next phase of the meeting. That's all. Okay. Yep. Thank you, Quinn. Hope we didn't lose Phil.
There's a long ways out there to the Brothers Road, so maybe it's.
I understand the wind was kicking up a little bit. Here he comes.
Okay.
Much better, Phil.
Yeah, I'm back. Am I unfrozen? Okay. Meeting format, take 3. In years past, the select board has met and made decisions by consensus. My understanding of consensus is that we attempt to show unity by a thorough discussion, attempt to understand why some people are for or against, and we all move toward a common decision. It's not to say that someone can disagree, but that we attempt to do it in a civil and an informed way. So I'm not sure what words we would say other than meeting format. In addition, I did some research today, and I would like in an upcoming meeting to present to you, my fellow board members, a set of procedures for us to conduct our meeting. I feel that, the ideas would come from the Vermont League of Cities and Towns. They have such a document. It's short and it's sweet. And then we could put it on our website. So for tonight, though, I think I would just like to decide if folks are comfortable with a consensus type meeting, that we would strive for consensus and use majority voting techniques when needed.
I think that's fine with me. I think in most cases, we're going to have consensus. There might be a few controversial issues here and there that we have to debate and vote on.
Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts?
Well, there are some times that I guess it would be good if we were on the record for how we felt on an issue. So
Very much so, Clyde. I agree with you on that part. Mary, any thoughts?
Well, I feel that this is how we've been conducting ourselves.
Okay,
So,
great. And Mandy, any thoughts?
Oh, I think that sounds perfectly reasonable.
Okay, great. Okay, then assuming we made motions for the other, I would entertain a motion that our meeting format be one of consensus, and that we ultimately vote by majority when and if that is needed.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Great. Any
Aye.
nays? Okay, thank you, Clyde. Okay, I think we have organized ourselves. Welcome again to Clyde and Mandy. And Jim, you're a veteran now of 4 meetings, but welcome to you as well. So
Thank you.
okay. On to the regular part of the agenda. Let's do the orders first, and then we'll do the minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes to approve. Mandy, the orders, which should have been included in your packet, are essentially the checks written by the town finance department for various accounts payable pieces. And I guess I would first entertain a motion to accept the accounts payable up to today, March 7th.
So move.
Okay. Any seconds?
I'll second it.
Okay, great. Any discussion?
I think I have one question if it's not too late. The 7,000 for expense reappraisal, is that the FOG expense?
Yes, it
Oh, it
is.
is actually. Sorry, I see it over on the left now.
Yep.
Never mind.
Right, that was my only question as well. Is that, if I recall, that's half the payment? Great. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, we've had a motion to accept the minutes. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. Thank you. Let's go on to the first set of minutes, which are from the February 21st meeting. Do I have a motion to accept those minutes before discussion?
Yeah, I read through them and I didn't see anything in there that looked incorrect. So yeah, I make a motion to accept February 7th
Okay,
meeting minutes.
a second. Mary, seconded. Thank you. Okay.
So Phil, I just want to, you're just about at discussion point here. So as you did have one correspondence in your packet, and generally correspondence does come to me and I'll put it in your packets. I got one late Friday afternoon, so it didn't make your packets, but it pertains to the minutes of February 21st. This is from Gary Tracchier. He is basically communicating about a prior or an agenda item on the February 21st meeting, which was the Dan Gottsagen agenda item, the ditching on Garvin Hill Road. He points out that Dan Gottsagen had requested that the town rebuild the stone wall. He noticed that that was not in the minutes. So he requested that request that Dan Gottsagen had made to the board be added to the minutes. Felt as though there was an omission there.
So Dave, is the request to add his email or letter to you as to be part of the February 21st minutes?
Gary Tracchier, he's requesting that you add Dan Gottsagen's request that the stone wall be rebuilt into the minutes of February 21st.
Oops. You guys can hear me. I'm trying to think back to that meeting, and my recollection was that Dan was going to provide a copy of his statements for us to review.
That was my understanding as well. I think did we get it or not?
So, I mean, there were an awful lot of statements during that, discussion that he made. And, I think we're focusing on one, right? But what I think we really should do is just get his written statement. But if, Dave, if you disagree, please,
So Jim, just for the record, a packet had been sent out to the select board back in like October, September of 2021 that this is referring to.
Right.
So,
but he said he was going to provide a written copy of the statement that he made during the meeting. Right.
I haven't received anything from Mr. Gotsagan since the, other than his communication to be a part of the meeting from February 21st. I suspect, Jim, if the select board would like a copy of the letter that he had submitted back in September, that's fine. We can resubmit that to the board if you like.
I don't think we need to resubmit anything that we already have it. That's fine. I mean, we may just want to reach out to him to see if he wants to submit a copy of the statement. If we need to amend the minutes, we can, right? But, there's certainly not a lot of things in his statement that aren't verbatim in the minutes. So I'm not sure if we need to, I just don't know. I don't know. Do we need to amend it for one request that wasn't made by Dan?
Yeah, Jim, you bring up a good point because there were a number of suggestions that were made during that evening for how the process could be potentially better. And there was a good faith, I thought a good faith effort on the Gotsagan's part to bring that forward. So Gary, I believe his intent is to just make sure that he's keeping the board on our toes. Is that, I guess that's the way I would like to read it.
Dave, excuse me, Phil, this is a question for Dave. Are we obliged to change or amend the minutes based on a citizen's request? I mean, I've never heard of this before. And maybe it's legit, but it's always been if the select board members found an error or an omission, then it was up to us to make those changes, corrections.
And I think, I'm sorry to interrupt there, but I think the minutes might, if we read it right now, just kind of, Dan read a letter explaining that they hope sharing their experience will help avoid problems, right? That's kind of the first section of his statement. With future projects and requesting specific mitigation. So, I mean, I think the summary is there. He requested specific mitigation. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure the minutes, I think the minutes do reflect that, without going into the detail of everything that he requested.
Right, because then, I mean, anybody could read the minutes and say, well, I don't like this or I don't like that and change this. I don't think that's the way minutes are supposed to work.
Well, I'll agree with you, Mary. They are the board's minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if it was like at town meeting, when we were, and they brought up that there was an error in the clerk's minutes, they could amend it then because you're accepting them. Mm-hmm. But the public is not accepting our minutes.
Right.
Good.
Yeah. I think that just doesn't make sense to me that it would, just doesn't make sense. Okay.
And Mandy, for your purpose, this is an issue that's been going on for a number of months right now. The select board entered into executive session as the nature of the discussion was both legal as well as contained negotiations, which is the purpose of an executive session. We've had communications going to the Gotsagans, And this discussion is really just about the minutes right now. So,
Thank you.
okay. It is our choice, as Clyde said, they are the board minutes to either amend them or not, but it sure sounds like there's no real precedent to do that. So we can duly note the correspondence, but not necessarily as part of the official minutes, if that's what I'm hearing the group would like to do.
Yeah, I think, Phil, it's fine to recognize the correspondence, but I think, again, the minutes, the phrase requesting specific mitigation kind of covers that correspondence.
Okay. Dave, I think I can just go forward and ask for a vote on the, we have the motion on the floor to accept the minutes of February 21st. Do we have to officially acknowledge Gary's correspondence with you?
I think if Mary were to acknowledge that, Gary had requested that, I think that if that's acknowledged in the minutes, I think that that's sufficient.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Phil, what I wrote down is Dave Orbison noted that Gary Trotcher submitted a letter noting that Dave Gotzingen's requested a stone wall be rebuilt into the minutes of February 21st. I didn't write that perfectly, but that's the gist of it. So
Okay.
Is that all right with you?
That's fine by me. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, let's move forward then. All in favor of the February 21st minutes? Say aye.
Aye.
Yes, I better abstain because I wasn't.
Yeah, I think it wasn't there. It just dawned on me, Clyde. I'm sorry. Okay. Okay, then we have minutes from the informational meeting on February the 23rd. First, I would entertain a motion to accept them and look for a second, and then we can have a discussion if there is one.
I'll make the motion to accept the February 23rd town informational meeting minutes.
Thanks, Jim. Is there a second?
I can second it. Yes.
Great. Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, then I would ask for a vote. All in favor of accepting the February 23rd minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
And great. Motion passes. Are there any adjustments to the agenda?
I have none.
Under correspondence, I believe we can talk about the piece that's in our packet, which also has gotten a little Upper Valley news release. Any other thoughts that we need to adjust the agenda? Okay, hearing none, I would open it up to public comments. If you would like to make a comment and you're out there watching, please use the raise your hand icon, and our CATV technician will sort of recognize you and turn on your video. Right now, I don't see any from the 6 attendees. Okay, hearing or not seeing any raised hands, let's go on to new business. The first item is the 911 or the 911. designations. I was calling them redesignations. But Dave, I don't know if this is something you're going to introduce and then turn to Sean, or is Sean going to run with this?
I'll introduce it, Phil. So, as you know, we did bring Sean on at the beginning of in the fall. Good part of his work effort is concentrating at the moment on the 911 numbering, getting caught up on some things. As you can see in the handout, there is roughly 7 to 8 new private roads that we need to confirm or approve for Sean. And also in the packet was some supporting information as to why we need to make these changes. If you have 3 houses on a driveway, we need to make that into a private drive. We need to kind of reconfigure the numbering a little bit to kind of lose some of the A's and B's and some other things. Oddly enough, Sean's been working on this for a good number of, almost since November anyways, particularly on a lot of these roads that you see in front of us. And the state is just really slow in responding to our requests, but they finally got to it. And so what you see is what is being proposed. And I will open it up to Sean. Sean, if you'd like to just kind of explain what you've put together here and what we're asking for, that would be fantastic. Quinn, if you could, Sean McGranigan, if you could allow him to speak, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Can everyone hear me?
You need to turn it up a little bit, Sean.
Can you guys hear me now? Is it?
Yep, yes.
Okay. So hi, I'm Sean McGranigan. I'm the Ordinance Administrator and E911 Coordinator in Hartland. So I'm here today to ask for Select Board approval for the creation of 8 new private roads. So in the Vermont E911 Board addressing standards, it states that a shared driveway of any length having 3 or more addresses on it shall be defined as a private road. So because of this, 8 driveways in town need to become private roads. These driveways include the driveway for 60, 62, 64, and 66 Chute Road, which is proposed to become Dairy Lane, the driveway for 83, 85, and 85A Chute Road, which is proposed to become Tilly's Way, the driveway for 89, 91, 93, and another unaddressed house on Chute Road, which is proposed to become Manny's Way, the driveway for 96, 98, and 98A Chute Road, which will become Frisian Way. The 5th one is the driveway for 113, 115, and 117 Chute Road, which is proposed to become Whitcomb Gallow Way. The 6th is the driveway for 13, 15, and 17 Gilson Road, which is proposed to become Riverview Lane. The 7th is the driveway for 28, 30, and 32 Grout Road, which is proposed to become Long Winter Drive. And the 8th is the driveway for 343, 345, 347, 349, and 351 US Route 5, which is proposed to become Henry Road. So along with the creation of the new roads, the addresses of the homes along these roads will also change. So addresses were assigned following the 5.28 foot standard, as this standard is required for any new road being addressed in the state. And then in the packet, there's a list of all the addresses. I also sent letters to all the residents letting them know about the meeting tonight, and I've talked to residents about the readdressing. So the state has given preliminary approval for the new road names and the new addresses, but now there needs to be, I need to send a written document to the state with select board signatures letting them know that the select board approves of the new road names, and then I'll send that back to the state. And then if you were to sign off on the new roads, then once the state gets that, then they will be officially created. So that is pretty much what I'm here for tonight.
Sean, can you just explain how you came up with the road names themselves?
Yeah, so I went out to each of the driveways, proposed roads, and talked to residents. So most of them were consensus among all the residents. The ones where I didn't hear back from the residents or they didn't give me a recommendation, it was the recommendation from the residents I did hear back from on that road. So for example, Henry Road, I talked to 3 different residents. One gave me a recommendation. I left notes for the other residents, but I only heard back from the one, so I went with their recommendation on that example. But like Long Winter Drive, that was all 3 residents on the road agreed on that one together.
Jim, you have a question?
Yeah, first a timing question, Sean. Like when did you meet with the residents? And I guess also what was their disposition? Were they kind of upset by the changes or okay with it?
So I started with the 5 private driveways on private roads on Shoot Road. And I started that back in October, I believe. Then sent that to the state, didn't hear back. So then I started on the next 3, which is the Gilson Grout and US 5.
Okay.
And then I also sent that to the state. So the residents, pretty much most of the residents were understanding of the change. A few of the residents mentioned that they'd been approached before about the changes, but that they never happened for some reason.
Okay.
But
so not a lot of pushback.
There was one resident on proposed Henry Road who was unhappy, but her husband said he understood. But it was a husband and wife, and the husband said he understood, but the wife was.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So, Sean, I have some questions, but before I dive into them, they're on the second document that you gave to us. That's more of the background and how you're going about your work. But are you asking us for a motion, or is this something that we need to come into the office to Damon Hall to sign a document?
So it would be something that would need to be signed off on, so I can send it to the state. So they have proof that it was approved.
Okay, so we don't have a sample of that document, but if...
Sorry, Phil, you don't, but it looks almost identical to what you have in front of you.
Okay.
With an exception that there'll be 5 lines with, your names on it for you to sign. So it's really not too much of a difference. Sean and I talked about that today, and wasn't aware when I sent out the packet that you needed to sign it, but it looks very, very much like the document that you see in front of you. But there'll be a place for you to sign at the bottom.
Okay, well, that was my next question, and make sure that Mandy understood. Would that be left up in the finance office and we just walk in and?
Yep.
Okay, we can even use our pens.
I do need a motion from you, though, to approve of the changes as presented. Would be beneficial as well.
Okay. Would someone entertain a motion to accept Sean's letter as the background for the 911 changes?
I'll move that we accept this list of proposed name changes and numbering.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mandy. Any further discussion on this particular part of the document? All in favor? Aye.
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 Looks like it's unanimous. Sean, I guess 2 things. One, I've been asked by some town citizens that they don't understand how their current 911 numbers being changed when they haven't done anything in their homes. And in a particular case, it sounds like they have another structure on the property that I couldn't identify when I drove by it as whether it was just a garage or storage area. But I'm wondering if you could give us some feedback as to the nature of your work in redoing numbers across town.
Yeah, so for the addressing, E911 addressing, there's a website called GeoLinks, which is through the state of Vermont. And it kind of shows a map of all the E911 addresses in town. And there's a layer on there called the special comments layer. So under the special comments layer, it identifies there's all these state identified addressing issues in town. So like, for example, there's certain areas that should become private roads. There's some addresses that are out of order. So say it's like 10, 20, and then like 15, 25. So that address would need to be changed. There's some addresses that have odd even parity issues where it's an odd address on the even side of the road. So the state requests that I change those. So to do that, I generally will go out to the property, measure what the correct address is, and then enter the change to the state, and then also send out letters to residents, first responders, also the post office, notifying them of the address change. And then there's, for example, like with adding an address for an additional house. So the state, each like occupied structure is supposed to have its own E911 address. So an example on Queen Pot Road, there are 3 structures. One's a garage that's not human occupied, and 2 are houses. So there was only 1 address for the property. It was 41, which is an incorrect address anyway. So that one had to be changed to 61 because it was out of order. And then the other address was assigned 63 because since they're 2 separate dwellings, they need separate addresses. Like, for example, there's a fire, they know like that they're 2 separate houses, so they don't spend time trying to find one house, find out which house to go into if there's only 1 address for 2 separate houses.
Okay. In the document, it talks about the locatable address. Address should consist of a number, a street name, and location information. Can you give me an example of what that is? Do we use that in Hartland, or is that something that's used in more larger areas?
The location information?
Yeah.
So that just means like so different areas of Hartland have different, fall under different response zones for E911. So for example, on Chute Road, their first responders is Hartland Fire Department, but there's other areas of town that's Woodstock Fire Department is their response.
Okay.
So that's kind of the location.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. And then this is just one, I'm just curious. Last fall when I was riding my bike and we were discussing the need to change this, I noticed in Woodstock that we're using a decimal number. So it might be 220.1 or 0.2. Is that something that we'll be doing, or does that help us in any way? Short of, I can imagine it's a nuisance if someone's full US mail address needs to change and they have to chase it down in so many different places.
So the state, that is not allowed anymore. Either decimal point addresses, hyphened addresses, or like, say an A and B address are no longer allowed. They were allowed previously and they're grandfathered in. So, but it's not something, but also it's identified, like I can see Woodstock's, what their issues are, and that's identified as something that they want Woodstock to fix is the decimal addresses.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions for Sean as we try to wrap our hands around what this is and how it's affecting town? Great. Sean, thanks for your work. This is something that's been on the list for a while, so we're glad that you're tackling it and the building ordinances as well.
Thank you guys for approving it and appreciate it.
And we'll be ready tomorrow morning after 10 or something like that?
So you can come in after 9 o'clock to the finance office. You can come in tomorrow or Wednesday at the latest, so we can kind of get that sent out. That would be awesome. You can say hi to Michelle and Martin. I'll be glad to see you. So, yeah.
Great. Okay. Okay, going on, the next new business item is the Certificate of Compliance State Road and Bridge Standards. Dave, I think this is yours.
Yep, and before I move on, I just want to, so he does have other 911 stuff in the pipeline and things on that list for him to address. So we'll be seeing over the course of, a couple months as we move along here, Sean will be coming back into a couple more 911 changes for you.
Great.
Road and bridge standards. So the next two items are really administrative in nature. Every year V-Trans asks us for this stuff. I've even been told the road and bridge standards, it's actually a certificate of compliance. I've been told that it used to be every 5 years you kind of renewed this, but towns would kind of forget that they signed it or misplace it or whatever. So this V-Trans came up with this certificate. So every year this comes back in front of you is kind of a reminder that you have signed on to these road and bridge standards and that you're essentially re-upping for another year. You're basically acknowledging that you are going to abide by the road and bridge standards. So two things, and you've got the bridge standards that we signed, I think it was in 2019. This was kind of a new format with the state of Vermont. We signed it in 2019. We've signed it in 2020 and 2021. It really serves two purposes. One is basically we tell the state that, yes, we are going to abide by the standards, road and bridge standards that you have put forth. They are good they are good standards, and we do try and abide by them today. Doesn't mean that we go out in 1 year and try and change, Hartland's roads over to the new standards overnight. But as we do new projects, we do try and bring those up to grade. That particularly with culvert replacements and guardrails and repaving, we try and do that. So in and of themselves, they are excellent guides and good standards, and I think that every town should abide by them. On the flip side, there is kind of a carrot for us to sign this, and that is through if there is a FEMA event in town, you need to have the bridge standard, road and bridge standards in place. It is helpful also to use the road and bridges standards. For instance, the Mace Hill culvert that we replaced, I don't think it was last year, I think it was the year before. FEMA really kind of balked, even though the culvert was taken out in a storm event. They had issues with a complete replacement. They didn't think it was, fell within the FEMA funding. However, we were able to show them through the help of V-Trans District 4 out of White River Junction that, it is, in order to upgrade that culvert, it needed to be brought up to current standards, which is essentially the box culvert that we have there today. The fact that we had signed on to these standards and it needed to be upsized to that culvert, FEMA did pay for that. So I don't think that would have occurred if we didn't have the road and bridge standards. So it's kind of a two-edged sword. I think for the good, they're good standards and something we should abide by, but it's also very helpful when it comes to a FEMA storm event that we have these in place. Much easier to get through the process, and they're much more willing to reimburse through the grant process. So I'm looking for you guys to make a motion to adopt the certificate of compliance, I think is what it is. And I can leave this out for you guys to sign. Otherwise, I can sign it. But since you need to come in anyways, I'll leave it out for the board to sign and make it worth your while to come in.
I just got a couple of dumb questions. Do we meet the standards today?
What's that?
Do we actually meet the standards?
So again, Jim, it depends on the area of, roadway. If you were to look at parts of Clay Hill Road, absolutely not. We don't meet those standards. But if we were to repave Clay Hill Road, there's that part that we should bring up to standard. So the old wooden guardrails that are falling apart, unstrung, and knocked over.
Does the certificate imply that we meet the standards for new projects, or that we meet the standards on all roads? What's the implication?
So, Jim, it means that as you do the work going forward, you will bring that aspect of what you're working on up to the standard. So again, if we keep it simple and we're just simply, replacing a culvert, there's a place on here, the town road and bridge standards talks about intermittent stream crossings and how to size the culvert with the water crossing, that you size it appropriately. And, you do that instead of just throwing a 15-inch culvert back in or whatever. You upsize it to maybe it needs to be 24 or 36, depending on how wide that stream is.
Okay. And do we have an up-to-date, I think we do, because I think we signed this recently, an up-to-date highway network inventory?
Oh, we do.
Okay.
Yeah, Jim, that was done by Two Rivers. And they then further created the inventory of the hydraulically connected road sections that and detailed wrote about what that work needed to be. So, so thanks to our regional commission, we have that information. Okay. And in reading the FAQs that were in here, they do imply that if we updated a culvert today exactly like it was, and it was undersized, and there was a weather event, FEMA would not honor any of that cost because of we failed to comply with the needed change. So I'm pretty sure I understand that from the document on that part. Dave, so the town road and bridge standards that's dated 2019 is really just a reference document for us today that goes along with that. Yeah. Right.
So particularly with Clyde and Mandy coming on board, even with Jim, who hasn't seen this, it's great to have the certificate of compliance, have you re-up that, but I want to make sure you are aware of, what you originally signed in 2019, what the road and bridge standards actually are, why we even mess with it. So I wanted to give you guys a little bit of a historical perspective as to what we were kind of dealing with here.
And I don't have the data on the tip of my tongue when the roads committee was formed and produced the report, but I do know that the report used these documents as the basis for our plan to go forward, creating budget items in the years ahead.
Partially, yes, correct.
I like that partially, Dave. Yeah. Okay, so again, do we need a motion, or our signatures are really the motion, I assume?
I'd like you to, I'd like you to make a motion basically let me take a look at this real quick. I think you should adopt the certificate of compliance for town road and bridge standards and network inventory for 2022.
Okay, does anyone want to mimic that motion?
I'll move that we adopt the certificate of compliance.
Great. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Great. Any additional questions, discussion?
I don't want to drag this on too long. Just kind of reading through things. Is there any risk in these standards that we run into another situation like we did on Garvin Hill?
I guess I'm not clear, Jim, as to what went wrong on Garvin Hill, to tell you the truth. The state of Vermont asked us to ditch and, without getting too much into it. So standards in Garvin Hill, I don't think you're fully informed, Jim, and I think you should, maybe that conversation should happen at a later time.
Sorry, I was muted. We are governed by state statutes, even though we've had policies that may be kicking around for a while. I think, Jim, you pointed out it might be a good time to dust off those policies to make sure they reflect the state standards, which is what we must apply those standards to our work. I think I'm speaking correctly, Dave, as far as what we can do and what we can't do.
Sounds good.
Okay. Anything else, Jim?
No, thank you.
Okay. All in favor of accepting the motion for the certificate of compliance and so on, say aye.
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 It's all five of us. Thank you. We are on a roll. The next new business item is something which I am not even familiar with, a TA60 annual financial plan for fiscal year 23 town highways. Dave, I assume that's you.
So yes, and again, this is extremely administrative in nature. You basically vouching that what our town spending is. This is our budget minus the equipment fund. So we put 100 in, I can't remember the exact amount, 160, 170 into an equipment reserve fund. Reserve fund money is not part of the TA60. So that's backed out of this. And you've got some grants and aid revenue and grants and aid expenditures that are kind of broken out here as well. The gist of the TA60 is simply to show the state, you gotta basically spend a real base minimum amount of money in order to get the state funding for town highways. We do that. And that's what you're basically stating here. They take the number and they see that you're spending that amount of money. But they also look at this in a secondary way in which when they have basically an emergency grant available. So if a storm came through tomorrow and knocked out some things, it wasn't a FEMA event, but it may be a storm event that caused us enough damage. They look at your budget, and I can't remember whether it's the damage has to be 40 or 60% of your budget, but they look at your budget and your spending and determine whether you're eligible for that emergency funding or not. And so that's kind of a secondary use of this. So looking for you to basically approve the TA 60 as presented, and this will get sent into, V-Trans District 4, and they'll keep it on file there as well.
Dave, why is there a difference in the income versus the expenses for the Vermont Grants and Aid? One would think that we're spending only what came in as far as grant money is concerned.
So there's always not always, but with a lot of the Vermont V-Trans grants, there's a 10 or a 20% match. This is a 20% match, so they don't cover the entire amount. They cover 80% of it, and town picks up the rest. So if a project is $21,875, they'll pay 80%, which is the $17,500. And then the town is responsible for the remaining 20%.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Good. So I assume we need a motion to accept the annual financial plan for town highways and for that Vermont statute number. Does anyone like to entertain a motion?
All right, Phil, just trying to understand the motion. We just basically have to sign the TA 60, right? So we have to make a motion that we approve it. And
Jim, I'm sorry, I didn't see the signature area on the back side.
So Jim and Phil, yes, I would recommend, I ask that you also make the motion and approve it for the minutes as well.
Okay.
But the motion, sorry, Dave, I don't want to be remedial. We're just stating that we're spending at least $300 a mile on our roads, right?
Yep, but I would like a motion and acceptance of it for the record, so that
we're spending a lot more than that, though, right?
You're only spending more than that because it's going in a reserve fund for the equipment fund. I don't have that exact dollar amount on me off the top of my head, but that's been backed out.
Yeah,
so
we have looks like we have about 70, 80, 86, 87 miles of town road. Something like that, 75 miles.
So it's class 2 and class 3, yeah.
So $300 a mile, it's like $22,000, and our budget is way beyond that, right?
So I'm asking you to state that for the minutes, that's what, we're spending, to approve the TA 60 so that you can sign it and send it in.
So I make a motion that we approve the TA 60, which is an annual financial plan for our town highways that states we're spending at least $300 per mile of our roads.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Clyde. Mary, do you have that?
Yep.
All in favor of the motion to accept the annual financial plan for the town highways? Say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you.
So we're all going to get writer's cramp tomorrow.
Sorry, Jim?
So we're all going to get writer's cramp tomorrow when we come in to sign these things.
Right, speech recognition a number of times, and my diction is so poor that it results in some pretty interesting results.
Phil, you're muted.
I dare not repeat what I said. We're on to the manager's notes.
A couple big things here. So COVID-19, you may be familiar, both the CDC and the state of Vermont has changed their recommendations since the last time we met. CDC changed theirs. They basically have categorized counties as to high, medium, or low COVID spread. Medium and low, they recommend you're okay going maskless. If you're in a medium county, if you have an immune deficiency or you're prone to being sick, you should still wear a mask. But for general public buildings, et cetera, the recommendation has been basically removed at this point by the CDC. The state of Vermont decided that they are removing the recommendation as of March 14th. The mask recommendation on March 14th will no longer be in place for public buildings. They didn't really want to mess with the high, medium, low, so there's a little bit of discrepancy between the state of Vermont and the CDC. But in either situation, the recommendation is at this point that public buildings can be maskless. So as of March 14th, I didn't put this in my update to you, but we are going to follow a week from today in the public buildings. We are going to do away with the mask recommendation in the town buildings. I believe that the library will still continue to recommend or wear masks for the foreseeable future based upon the library board. But we will change if for whatever reason we were to revert back to high category, then obviously we would reconsider and perhaps go back to masks in the public buildings. But I don't see us flip-flopping every other week. It would need to be, it looks as though we're going to be in the high category for a little bit. Then we would go back to wearing masks. But as of March 14th, that is going to be no longer. So if you come into Damon Hall to sign your certificates or whatever you need to sign, masks will not be necessary, but that's next week. As far as our meetings go, in the public, in your town manager's notes, I hinted that April was going to be the time that we come back for meetings here in Damon Hall. Due to a little snafu, it looks as though it's going to be our next meeting, March 21st. So we do have a public hearing for the rec center ADA access. We are trying to obtain a grant for that. As part of the grant process, we need to have a public hearing. It may only be a couple minutes long, but nevertheless, we need to have it. They put that warning in the newspaper, but they did not give a link or even hint that we were going to be remote or even a hybrid. So we can do a hybrid, but we do or will most likely be meeting in person March 21st, which is our next meeting. Also know that mask mandates will not be in place. Three Corners intersection, that it continues to very much move forward. We are hopefully expecting to go out to bid next week if everything continues to fall into place. We are continuing to look at GPI as our inspection services for our inspection services engineering. And we will have a concrete proposal for them by March 18th or before. So that does continue to move forward.
On the Three Corners, are there any updates on our bond application?
So the bond occurred on February 24th. I believe. So that bonding occurred. So we had that special meeting, I think it was like February 10th. We needed to have that information into them. The actual bonding occurred on the 24th, and that money is held essentially in escrow in US Bank. And, that will be available, as soon as the project begins.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yep. Highway Department, we posted roads today, probably more than a couple days too late. Could have done that middle of last week, but we held off a little bit. Very nice day on Saturday, although it was up into the 50s. Kind of a warm day today, a whole lot of rain. I understand that the roads are holding together. Certainly there's probably a fair amount of frost still in the roads, but as we move forward, depending on how the weather goes, I expect to see those kind of unravel. So we are moving into mud season here, and those have been posted both on the roads and on the website and at the 3 locations in town. As I kind of put out to you after our last meeting, we did receive some very good recommendations on Brian Fogg. Clyde and Manny, that is Brian. I think in the town manager update, it says brain fog. So kind of funny. I kind of caught that here as I'm talking. We did move forward with him. And as you mentioned, we got the invoice for the first part of that payment. So obviously the process is moving forward. Town meeting, we had overall 956 ballots were cast. Just under 100 came in person. I think the number was like 93, 94, somewhere in there. So I think that at the end of the day, having people or the mail out ballots and trying to keep people away from the public space worked. So we were very happy with that. It seemed to be a slow day in here. Unfortunately for the justice of the peace, but from Brian and where I was, that was all a good thing and fairly successful, I think. I mentioned the ADA access under COVID-19, but I do just want to, I'm putting this in your head because the next couple of meetings are going to be somewhat busy. We've got the public hearing for this grant at our next meeting. I do expect the Planning Commission hopefully to be passing on the town plan on Wednesday to the Select Board for the town plan update. Once that comes forward, we need to have 2 public hearings at the Select Board level. The second one is basically, an adoption, but we do need to have 2. So we're going to have kind of some busy Select Board meetings in here in March 21st, and then the first and second one may be April and May, or maybe we can do it back to back in April, but I'm not sure that we can do that. It'll be most likely April and May, but I certainly wanted to kind of give you a heads up of some of the things that we've got coming down the pike, in addition to some of the administrative stuff that we've got. And also, after some of those things, we do have a class 4 roads and legal trail policy that the Conservation Commission has been working on. So we got that coming down the pike as well. So, we got a couple of things to kind of sink our teeth into over the next 2 to 3 months. So I just kind of wanted to, keep everybody abreast of what we've got coming down the pike.
Sure. Dave, for the rec center and the ADA access, it's not clear to me what the meeting is about. Are we going to have plans beforehand that we can review just to see what the scope is? Or is that the purpose of the meeting, to present what the needs are and a potential solution to those needs?
So that's what the grant's for. The grant is for a scoping study, which will hopefully tell us what the end result will look like. So again, this is keep it a little bit more simplistic than that even, Phil. It's just a matter of, look, we are going out and getting a grant. This is what the grant's for. This is, about what the expense will be of the grant. This is what we're, hope to do with the grant, which is to, look at, have an architect or an engineer look at the building and come up with some alternatives as to how we can, make that handicapped accessible.
Okay. Sure.
And possibly even look at some of the drainage issues. So it's more of a public hearing that, look, we're going out and getting this grant for this process. We will not have any kind of plans or grand answers for another 1.5 to 2 years.
And am I right to say or recall that Two Rivers is shepherding this with us? Okay.
We are getting assistance from Two Rivers. Unfortunately, Tori Littlefield is leaving Two Rivers. So we got a little bit of, a transition here, but I expect to see Mr. Kevin Geiger with us on the 21st. So he's been at Two Rivers forever. And we may even see another person from Two Rivers, Stephen Bauer, who's fairly new with them, but very good guy. So they will be here to talk about the grant process. They are submitting the grant for us. So we got some assistance from Mr. Gregory on this. Good to see. Right. So this has been in the works for a little bit.
Yeah.
You may not recall, but so they've taken some of the funding, kind of hard to believe, even with all the ARPA money kicking around at the state level, but they've kind of robbed from this pool of grant money, this grant money, which is for handicapped access, and they've funneled some of that to housing. So unfortunately, this process is more competitive than usual and is kind of a competitive process. So just want to give everybody a heads up that it is competitive. It's not a slam dunk. They were supposed to have for lack of a better term, grant offering right about now, and they had to cancel it because of, they had taken some of that funding and given it to housing. So they didn't have it for the ADA access, but we will go through that process in June. The gentleman that is involved in the grant, trying to think of the word, from the state of Vermont that awards the grants, is familiar with this building, is familiar with Hartland, thinks it's a good project. That's good to hear. But again, it's gotten competitive, and hopefully they'll see the merits, and we can do what we need to do.
Anything else, Dave, on the manager notes?
Yeah, just again, for Jim, Mandy, and Clyde, number 7, miscellaneous. Most of the time, as a reminder, I kind of put the things that a lot of the things are right presently in front of me, like the Three Corners intersection, the ADA access to the rec building, the flooring to the activity center. And we have problems over there because the floor is painted. And, anytime you've got childcare facility, every time you have chip paint, you need to address it. We've addressed a lot of the issues over the activity center, but we are looking to put in a flooring over there, whether it be tile floor or maybe, kind of the carpeting that comes in squares that kind of fits together. Something to put over that so that we're not continuously kind of battling the chips, the paint chips there. We do get some flooding at the activity center, so we can't be too extravagant. We need to be able to clean it up, whether it be a shop vac or a mop. But that's also, I'd like to try and finish that or get that done by the end of the year. And then from there, you see some medium-term and long-term projects, and I keep those in front of you as kind of a reminder of the items that we've got coming down the pike. Some of those have been in here for 4.5, 5 years, but again, these are things that are important and vital and need to be done, and I kind of keep them in front of you, and most of the time they're on here as just kind of a reminder. One last thing, Phil, I will mention, we have decided, actually I have decided, the walking path to the rec center, we're going to put off again this year to next year. Just with the amount that we've got going on with the Three Corners intersection and some of our other road projects, just felt as though it was going to be difficult to kind of see that through and have trucks going in and out of the library. If there was also construction going on at the Three Corners intersection, this is not going to go away. We've got the money kind of earmarked for it in the reserve funds. So we hope to pick that up, put the RFP out next winter and see that through.
Okay, that's great news, because I know that's many people in town use that area. Good. Okay, then any questions for Dave? If not, we'll go on to correspondence. Okay.
Phil, I'd like to make a correction to what I said earlier when we covered the correspondence. Dan did send his speaking points from when he addressed us. So, maybe we can consider a review of those speaking points and what his ask really is at one of our future meetings, put it on future agenda items. Okay, let's certainly thank you for double checking that, Jim. And so to correct our statements before, then right, yeah.
Dan and Nicole have followed up with that correspondence. So, okay, any other points before correspondence? Okay, Dave received a email from a Norwich Select Board person who I am not quite sure if she was alerted before or after Jim Kenyon's article, which someone just called me, Tom White just called me at 10 minutes to 5 and said, have I read that? And I wasn't here for the weekend. And so I grabbed Sunday's paper and read it. So the issue is the Mayor Campbell request, nothing to do with the functionality of those requests. It has to do with our method of discussing the request from and the requestor and wanting to do that in a private setting. As people know, this fund predates us here. And the Hartland Selectboards have been managing this for quite some time. Claudette, in her email, suggests a workaround to, since we've been told by the state that legally we cannot go into executive session to have this discussion or a deliberative session. And I think it's important, personally, I feel it's very important to protect the privacy of the requester. So tonight, we have correspondence and we have a Valley News article. And I happen to, totally aside from those two sources, I talked to a friend who's I forget, it's either in Cornish and Plainfield, and had discussed the dilemma we had, and they had yet another method where they solved this very same thing. So if I don't know if we can take an action under correspondence or just open up discussion for possible solutions. And of course, one solution may be to re-appeal to our state representatives to go to the Secretary of State to say, can we change this? So I'll pause and just ask for others' reactions, and then we really just need to be careful about what we can do tonight other than discuss it.
Yeah, well, just, excuse me. So I'll defer to Dave for a minute. If we really want to take action on this, do we have to put it on a future agenda?
Yeah, you should.
Yeah. So, I mean, personally, I think we can do this in a de-identified way. You know, exactly what process we use, you know, we can certainly talk about that in a future meeting and vote on it, take an action on it.
Jim, were you suggesting that the correspondence from Claudette, without my glasses, I can't show, maybe, that we take that route, or we just? Well,
I mean, I think, you know, yeah, I mean, if we put it on the agenda for future discussion, I think we can discuss it. If warranted, we can ask for a public comment, and we can just make a decision on how we want to approach it as a select board. Yeah, okay. But I think there must be an easy method here by which we can, you know, de-identify the requests and make decisions on it.
Yeah, I certainly agree with you and expect that. We're not planning on doing away with Mayor Campbell Fund, but I think there are ways that we can do this.
Ask one question: is there any urgency, Dave? Do we have any current requests that need to be considered? Okay, so we have time. Okay.
Clyde, I'm sure you're aware, but Mandy and Jim, you've been around for one request, but a request may come in through various channels, but ultimately possibly to the chair or to the town manager with a short letter describing what the need is. Dave traditionally does a bit of research, just checking what the need is, and also checking to see if it's a fuel instance, and maybe they qualify for, you know, fuel from other sources. And then the request would be brought to the board, and we would go into this semi-quiet session to discuss the request. In the past, volunteer select board members have visited the requester to further verify and understand what's going on. In addition, we've often we spent a lot of time discussing that some of these requests we began to feel that the requester might be back in 2 months asking for the same amount of money, that they really were in a hole, and how are they going to get out? So we were coming up with the idea of identifying a case manager that could help with the request and identify the many other resources that might be available in the Upper Valley. So here we are, and we will get it on an agenda, and certainly hopefully before another request comes in the door. Okay.
So Phil, I just remembered that we didn't identify a board spokesperson, which I think is traditionally the chair. So anyone, you know, if anyone's contacted by the media for an opinion or quote or comment, they need to defer and say that media person should contact the chair.
Okay. Or folks, I think that's also part of the statute, and that the chair is the spokesperson for the board. Thank you for clarifying that. As Mary, you were quoted in the article in the Valley News. So good. Okay, well, I want to just, before asking for adjournment, just say thank you for your vote of confidence to be the chair. I will work to be effective, but I can only be effective if I get the help of all of you, and I know I will, and I look forward to working with new members and old members, and even you, Dave, working with you as well too. I look forward to that. So with that said, eyeing the time and saying, wow, before anything else comes up, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll do a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mandy. I don't even think we need a second on that one. We just get out the door, right, Clyde?
Well, yeah, you don't have to have a second on adjournment. No.
Okay. Dave, anything else? Okay. Oh, I did have one question. Mandy, can you make it to Damon Hall during office hours to sign those documents?
Yes, I can.
Okay, excellent. Okay, good. Okay, have a good evening, everyone. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.